So Dad was born in Slovakia, which is formerly known as Czechoslovakia, more than 89 years ago. These are the name of his parents. And those that want to have a little bit more specifics about where it is, there is a map of it. Jewish life back then was it was very good, actually. And take my glass off, because the Jews were living there for a very, very long time, very, very long time, in perfect harmony, or not perfect, but in good harmony, good life with their non-Jewish, Christian neighbors. My father's lived in a very, very small village. כמה היו משפחות, אבא? היו בערך 10 משפחות יהודיות? Yeah. With 10 families, 10 Jewish families. That's it. So imagine the difficulties of keeping Jewish identity, but they were successful at doing that.
Yeah, their biggest worry was not whether or not lemon heads were kosher at Keg and Bottle.
My father actually has a couple of pictures that survived the Holocaust. Here is the only surviving picture of his mom, my grandmother, and with her sister. And then some pictures that after the Holocaust, and his cousin. His cousin, interestingly, had the same name as he did. So the two sisters each had a son, and each one of these boys had the same first name. So my father's Czech name is Ladislav. So we do not know why both were named Ladislav. It's something we will never know, unfortunately. Clearly, somebody in the family, a grandfather or somebody, had a name Ladislav. They were named after, but we do not know. But this picture right here that I'm circling, and this picture right here, had survived the war. This one right here, אבל זה לדיסלב בראון, נכון? אתה רואה אותו? לקחו אותו לאושוויץ באיזה שנה?
42.
So his cousin was taken to Auschwitz early in 1942. 42 is early to be taken to Auschwitz. And what he did in Auschwitz was עשה את המספרים, נכון אבא? He was actually tattooing the prisoners' numbers. That was his job. Did not make it in Auschwitz for very long, unfortunately. So a little bit about Dad. He was taken in 1942 to a work camp. It's called Seret. A picture of it is right there. That was his father. He was taken the night. Never returned. And my father was taken in 1943 with his mom to a work camp. There was back and forth, and then until finally they were taken to Auschwitz on a train. אתה ואמא שלך הייתם הולכים לסרט הלוך וחזור, עד שיום אחד לקחו אתכם לאושוויץ. נכון אבא?
Was there ever a time that you thought you would die? Like you thought it was over?
אבא, שאל אותך, היה פעם, היו מקרים שחשבת זה הסוף שלך, אתה תמות?
כן.
תגיד לו, תענה לו. פעם אחת, כמה פעמים?
פעמיים, 3.
A couple times, 2-3 times, yeah. תגיד להם את המקרים שהיה לך. פעם אחת בטח לשלג, פעם אחת לך, תגיד לו.
פעם אחת,
תגיד לו, אני אתרגם.
פעם אחת הלכתי בחוץ, היה הרבה מאוד שלג. אז אני נפלתי.
One time we went out of his
שם היה הרבה שלגים.
yeah. It was a very, very windy, it was a very, very snowy day.
Oh.
He came out of his bunk and it was extremely snowy and he fell into the snow. נפלת לשלג
הייתי בשלג כמעט יומיים.
And he actually was in the snow for a long time.
באוטו פרצבורגר.
Until for almost a couple of days, he doesn't remember. And then until this gentleman, Otto Pressburger, who's somebody he has actually known from his hometown. מצאו אותך בשלג, נכון? משכו אותך מהשלג. He pulled him out of the snow. פעם אחת היית בתוך זה של הגז, נכון?
בקרמטוריה, עבדתי בקרמטוריה.
כן?
כן, שבוע ימים.
Yeah. That also worked in a crematorium for 1 week, that's one of the most horrific jobs I've ever had to do.
מה עשית בקרמטוריה, סבוני?
Only one job to do.
היה שם זה.
מה אתה עושה? אספתם את
כן. ניקיון וזה.
cleaning in the crematorium. Okay. In Auschwitz היית בבלוק 12, נכון אבא?
14.
12, כתוב.
14.
14? אוקיי. אוקיי, טוב לדעת, אני אשנה את זה.
14.
Okay. In liberation of Auschwitz, Auschwitz liberated by the
Russia people.
by the Russians in January 27th, 1945. We every year have a kiddush, my father's honor, on the 27th of January. Dad was weighing 25 kilograms. Who's good in math?
I think 50 pounds.
So you can do, if you guys can do the quick conversion of what 25 kilograms is.
It's around like 50 pounds.
It's 55 pounds, yes. That was he stayed in the camp for a few more weeks. After Auschwitz, he was with a Russian officer. They traveled to Odessa, in Ukraine. And then after a month or so, after he got a little stronger, he traveled to Krakow, Poland. He got helped by it's called the Joint Agency. A joint azul Krakow. It's the first money he received. I just want you, how old are these gentlemen?
Youngest guy on the Zoom is 14, I think 14, and the oldest guy on the Zoom is 18.
Okay, so
Yitzhak, are you 18 yet?
So just to give you a sense of age, when my father was on his own, not a single person, no family, and having survived Auschwitz for 2 years, weighing 55 pounds, a little heavier now that he stayed, got a little stronger, and roaming around Auschwitz, roaming around Europe, he was 14 years old. That's hard to believe. Anyway, we have a couple more slides to go. How are we doing on time, Dano?
We have they have to be done at 10:05, so we have about 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Well,
we want to leave some time for questions also.
Okay. So he ended up in back to Slovakia, met his and was able to meet his aunt, Doda Rosa.
כן.
חיה, נכון?
לא חיה.
לא. עברה את כן. And Rosa was, she survived the war. She and the husband were hiding.
נכון.
נכון? And then 1947, he joined a youth movement called Shomer HaTzair. In 1948, he got a permission to emigrate to a new country called Israel. In January 49, when Israel was just 6 months old, he was at the age of 18. You arrived to Israel. איזה נמל הגעת לישראל אבא? נמל חיפה?
מה?
חיפה? נמל חיפה או אשדוד?
חיפה.
Haifa. He arrived to Haifa. Those who've been to Israel know that Haifa is a very large port city in Israel. And in Israel, my father and 120, including my father, members, all survivors, all fellow friends, established a kibbutz in the north of Israel called Leavot Chaviva. You guys can look it up if you want to. I recommend you do. Afterwards, he was there for 7 years. He actually built a kibbutz. So he actually not only looking at a survivor, but also someone who's actually built a kibbutz, still functioning kibbutz in Israel.
Today there's a thousand
members.
1,000 members of the kibbutz today, and when my grandfather built the kibbutz, there were 60 or 120.
120. Okay. Married my mother in 1959. We came to this country in 1979. And a great story to tell, and I highly recommend to all of you, just Google my father's name, was right there, Yehuda Reich survivor, and this is one of the first story. He's got several stories. One of the first stories that come up is this, that in 2006, my father and two of his friends reunited in Israel. And these guys were standing in line and all had
consecutive
numbers. תראה להם את המספר שלך, אבא. תפתח את השרוול. לא, תראה להם כמו שצריך, אבא. תפתח את השרוול.
You guys can see my grandfather's number?
Yeah.
Because that's what they were. That's what they were to them. Just a number.
Yeah. That is the really abbreviated story.
But you guys now you have about 10 minutes. You guys can ask questions. Really, like I said before, don't hold back. Whatever you really want to know about what happened to my grandfather or that time period, ask away.
Also, his time in Israel.
Yeah, his time he's a pioneer of the land of Israel that we know of today. Yeah, you don't have to just unmute yourself and ask.
אם יותר טוב לשאול בעברית או באנגלית?
עברית זה טוב.
אז כשעליתי לארץ, כאילו זה נכון, לא היה שום דבר בישראל כמעט, כאילו היה אבל מאוד מעט, כי אז איך זה היה לעלות לארץ שבלי כלום, בארץ שרק התחילה לפני כמה חודשים.
אבל איך היה מתי שעלית לישראל? בינואר 49 לא היה כלום בארץ, ממש כלום. הוא שואל אותך איך זה היה?
What was Israel like when my grandfather first died?
היה קשה מאוד. אני הייתי 7 שנים בקיבוץ. הייתי 7 שנים בקיבוץ. אנחנו באנו מסלובקיה 120. אז פיזרו אותנו בשתי קיבוצים, 60 למענית ו60 למרחביה. ואחרי שנה בצבא אמרו, אתם צעירים, אתם צריכים משהו לעשות.
So the question was, how was it coming to Israel when it was just a few months old? How was life there? So the response is, it was very, very hard. Tough, life was tough. Upon arrival, they were sent to two existing kibbutzim, and one Merchavia, one Ma'anit, and 60 and 60. מה עשיתם שם, אבא? בשנה הראשונה? למדתם אולפן?
כן,
אולפן, to learn the language.
אולפן ועבדנו.
ועבדתם, also worked the land. And then there were, a year later, they said to them, okay, those 120, here's a piece of land, and make a kibbutz.
זהו, בדיוק.
How did you keep your faith throughout the Holocaust, throughout going from camp to camp and all that?
That's a great question. שאל אותך איך, so my father שאל אותך איך אתה היית, איך אתה, אם היה לך אמונה
אמונה, how did you have hope and faith? אמונה וגם תקווה.
איך היה לך תקווה שאתה תעבור את
לא,
לא היה לך?
לא חשבתי.
He didn't think he was going to make it. My father was not religious person growing up, although there's some religion in his family. But he was, not a, and also the Leavot Chaviva was not a religious organization. It was not a religious kibbutz. Shomer Hatzair was not a religious organization.
Auschwitz was not a religious camp either.
Yeah, and he did not have any no religiosity to him when he after the war, and when his first few years in Israel. Only when he met my mom, when he because of her, because she comes from a very religious house, that he rediscovered his religion.
נכון.
Yeah. It's a great story. If we have a few minutes, I'll have them met.
I'll tell the guys tomorrow that story.
All right.
That one I know very well. But I think you guys have to get going. We have time for one more question if anyone has one more question.
Okay, so 102.
Yeah, Aaron.
What was the hardest point to get through? What was like the point that was just like so incredibly hard that you just, like, obviously you said there were parts that you were going to die, but like the point, not necessarily like in terms of physically, but like mentally challenging.
מה המקרים הכי קשים שהיה לך קשה, גם פיזית, גם מנטלית, כשהיית באושוויץ?
הגזים.
לראות את האנשים שהולכים ל...
כן.
Seeing people going to the gas chambers, knowing that they're,
2,000 gypsy
yeah.
one night go.
He actually witnessed 2,000 gypsies. They were not only Jews but also gypsies, and he actually witnessed a clan of 2,000 gypsies
Walking to the gas chamber.
Yeah, gone there one night and gone the next day. Okay.
אני אגיד לך, שם
And
היה הכל קשה.
סבוני, יכול להגיד לתלמידים, מה המקרה בחיים שלך שהיה הכי שמח? I'm asking my grandfather, what was the happiest moment in his life?
מתי שהתחתנתי.
Oh,
When he got married. When he met his wife of 59 years, that was the happiest moment of his life.
60 years, no? 59? Yeah.
60 years. Close
60,
enough.
60.
Close enough.
Don't ever forget that, guys. All right. With that, we're going to close. So everyone say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. See you.
Talk to you guys.
Okay, we'll zoom in tomorrow again.
All right.
תודה רבה. תודה רבה.
Bye-bye.
Hi.